to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chaunce, a.k.a. Chaunce.
A few reminders before we get to today's interview. First is, if you guys want to support the podcast, you can do so through our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/backpackerradio. We're actually going to do a Patreon episode here today with our awesome guest. What other recent... While you were gone, I did a Patreon episode with Elise.
Really?
Yeah, she did a wilderness first responders course, different from first aid. She gave us the lowdown on that. Very interesting. We do this once to twice per month. We're going to make an effort to up our game here because I know we've been slacking, especially over the month of June. So if you recently came on board and you've been disappointed, just know that we've got a lot of Patreon stuff cooking right now, including some very awesome stuff to come from PCT Trail Days.
Yes. We are... Well, that's the best part about PCT Trail Days is we are not doing a booth. Not that there's anything wrong with the booth, but when we are not tied up at a booth, it means that we can spend more time doing this, which is going to be really fun to test out because we haven't gone to a Trail Days and not done a booth.
No, this will be a different format. We'll be full-blown podcasting the entire time.
Yeah, so. And we've been putting out call-outs. You might have noticed that we've been asking if people have been hiking through or if there's anyone that we should reach out to. And happy to say we've got a pretty good lineup for who we're going to be doing episodes with. We'll keep that close to the belt for now, but it's shaping up to be some really good names. And then we're also going to have time to do just like fun extra content stuff additionally with it. So I think we're going to have a good fall of Backpacker Radio coming your way.
Yeah. PCT Trail Days will be a sprint. It'll be a lot of fun. And by the time this comes out, it'll just be a couple weeks away. So if you are going, please hit us up. We'd like to say hi. The other thing I want to note is this is a little bit early, but our editorial internship slot will be opening sometime later this fall. So if you've been wanting to find a good inroad with the Trek, especially on the editorial front, this is an excellent way to do so. A lot of our editorial interns have gone on to much bigger things, not only at the Trek, but other places, including Owen Eggenbrot, who was featured on this podcast, and our stand-in managing editor. And last but not least is I've been getting a lot of very positive feedback on this. We just released a new hat called the Stealth Endurance Hat, all black, and then the underbrim is turquoise, and it says hike repeating. I know the description's a little dumb, but keep your eyes on it. It'll be in the show notes. I should have brought one for those watching on YouTube. Didn't do that. Not that smart. But if you want to save 15% off, use code GINGERSTUFF at checkout, and you get free shipping on orders over $65 or more. Anything else you want to add?
No, but while you mentioned YouTube, if you are at the top of the show and you haven't committed too much time to listening yet and you're more of a visual person, we are on YouTube. We usually save that for the very end to say, but we'll tell you at the top for this time.
You know who else is on YouTube? Is today's guest. Popular YouTuber Stuart Howe runs a YouTube channel dedicated to documenting the backpacking trips he's done with his identical twin daughters. Stuart has backpacked all over Canada and the U.S. with trips in the remote backcountry of Jasper, Banff, and Kootenay National Parks. Did I say that right?
Pretty close.
Okay. That's all you can ask for. As well as trails in South Carolina, the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and Yellowstone. Stuart is the first YouTuber to be inducted into the Royal Canadian Geographical Society College of Fellows. Stuart, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
I'm thrilled to be here. Big fan, as I said before. Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is, what is the Royal Canadian Geographical Society College of Fellows?
So it's a group. So this is funny, right? So these are things that happen unexpectedly in life. I didn't know what it was when I received an email from Brian Patton, co-author of the Canadian Rockies Trail Guide, and he said, hey, I'm going to give your name to Gavin Fitch, past president of the RCGS. And I'm like, well, what is that? Like, they're not. So I looked it up, and it's really, the whole mandate of it is to showcase Canadian geography to Canadians and to the world. All right. So then I get asked if I would let my name stand, and I'm like, okay. And I looked it up. And I mean, Alex Trebek from Jeopardy, before he passed, he still has a big funding initiative with the RCGS. Polar explorers, James Cameron, the director of Titanic, because of all the undersea work he did, and then guys like me. So that's the idea. And so a quick backstory to this. We show up at this induction ceremony in Ottawa. Evelyn's there with me, my daughter who did the South Boundary, because she was nearby and Liv was busy. And we start talking to other people who were inducted. And this lady Evelyn was chatting up, discovered billion-year-old water under the Canadian Shield. And so she turns to me, she goes, and how did you get in? And I said, I deadpanned. I went, I do backpacking videos on YouTube.
How did she respond to that?
You know what? She just went, oh, wow, that's great. Like, didn't miss a beat. But that's what the RCGS is. I still don't, I mean, I'm glad to be there. It's an awesome organization, but it was a bit of a shock.
Why are there so many words? Like Royal Canadian Geographical Society makes sense, but what's a College of Fellows?
It's just a group of people that are nominated who then do work to support the organization. Yeah,
Interesting.
That's what it is. But the Royal Canadian Geographical Society was a duplicate of the Royal Geographical Society, which was in England, like the UK. So, yeah, lots of words. Yeah. So we say RCGS or FRCGS, Fellow Royal Canadian Geographical Society.
Yeah.
Are there any fun induction things to join? Like, is there anything you got to do apart from just like get invited?
No, not really. You just you have to be elected. So that's the other thing. So the whole time I found out I was going to be nominated. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, sure, right. Yeah, they're going to look at that and go, guy on YouTube, right? So I'm like nervous, like, oh, I don't think it's going to happen. But then you get elected, and then you go to the induction ceremony, you get a pin, and there's all this ceremonial part of it. But there are committees you can join and initiatives, like the RCGS just discovered a famous old shipwreck. So there's lots of exploratory work they do as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's a really cool organization. So hopefully I'm just the tip of the iceberg for people like us, because we do go out and do neat things, and we are showing it, so hopefully there'll be more to follow.
Yeah. So in the 10 or 15 minutes I've had to chat with you before we started the interview here, I've learned you have a very interesting background outside of backpacking, which we're going to get to, I promise. And this one might be a dangerous tangent to take us down, but you were once a very successful wedding planner, or you owned a wedding planning business.
I did, yeah. I owned a wedding planning company in Charleston, South Carolina. We did it started out as a DJ company, and then I started working with some of the wedding planners. And then I'm a thinker, so I started thinking, there's got to be a different way to do this. So there was. So that's kind of where I went with that, yeah. And I think the year that I sold it, I think I mentioned to you earlier, we had done the previous year about 150-ish weddings, couples who had booked multiple services. So I was the first point of contact, and I moved all the pieces around. But we were talking earlier about weddings. I mean, I wanted to have a company that focused on the couple and that leveraged technology online, because all of our couples were destination wedding people. They were all flying in from somewhere else. So yeah, it was an excellent business. I miss it. It was a lot of fun, but I didn't plan any weddings myself.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone like me who is dipping their toes into the beginning of the planning?
Well, we talked earlier. I mean, you're definitely going to want a day of coordinator at the end. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. This should be a joyous, fun, exciting time. Don't get like focused on little tiny things.
Don't be the way I am.
Okay. Well, you are a thru-hiker. I mean, there's the whole mentality, right? But I mean, yeah, no, just have fun with it. Enjoy it. It's a fun time, and it should be fun.
Did you do a DJ or a live band?
We did a DJ.
Okay. I would say DJ, although my ex-wife and I, the girl's mom, we had a band, like an old like Sinatra type band, and it was good. But
we're kind of leaning towards DJ, because our thought process that we've noticed at weddings we've gone to is if you have a band, people face the band.
Right.
And if you have a DJ, people face each other.
That's a really good point. Yep.
So we're leaning towards DJ because of that. But I just wanted to know.
I don't even think we had, I think literally we just built a Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And we had one person managing that, but it wasn't like a full-blown DJ. We went budget in a lot of areas.
Yeah. We're weary about that because we've been to ones where they've done that and it hasn't been managed the way that maybe the vision was.
Like the Spotify ads kick in, like,
yeah,
you'd like to save 15% on better health.
Or like there's some weird songs, and like the nice thing about a DJ is they can see kind of the vibe the crowd is having and cater the direction towards that.
It's your wedding. You should play the songs that you want to hear. That's the route that we went. People had a good time.
Well, sure.
It also helps to have an open bar. That'll ensure.
Yeah,
that
there will be that. There will be that.
Well, my DJ company, we started as DJs, as I said. I mean, the idea was you give the couple control over their playlist. So we used a program called DJ Event Planner, which is an online cloud-based platform. And they would go in and they would pick their favorite songs. They would tell us what they thought their crowd was going to be like. And then, of course, the do not playlist is key. Right? And the other thing is,
dance.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is if you have a DJ at your wedding, you're paying money, he doesn't go to the bar. Keep him on task.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what, seriously, I mean, I've seen it, so yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Should
Okay.
do a triple crown of do not play songs at a wedding.
Oh my God, yes.
First pick, definitely Chicken Dance.
Yeah. Cotton Eye Joe.
We had, if I could just say one more thing, we had a couple where it was in the bride's family. It was a tradition that the maid of honor had to wear a chicken suit and come out and dance to the chicken dance. I swear, I can still see it. It's burned into my memory.
Wow, that's rough.
It was interesting.
In what ways is planning a good wedding like planning a good backpacking trip?
Good segue. Well, you guys did through hikes. I mean, there's a lot of logistical planning to that. And wedding planning is just a high stakes logistical exercise. Like, that's really what it is. I've been not planning a lot of trips lately because a lot of my friends are planning the trips. So I kind of come in at the end and go, okay, what are we doing? And then I go through it. But when you're hiking with kids, like I started out with, I mean, there's a lot of, you have to be ready for everything.
Yeah.
And just take even when you're picking a loop, what if there's a fire? How do I get out of here if I need to go and exit a different way without scrambling over a coal or something? Like, how do I do that? So I think that part of the brain absolutely is important when doing more than a couple of nights, let's say, on the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So backpacking with your twin daughters, how old are they now?
21.
21.
Yeah.
At what age did you start backpacking with them?
So I just did a video on this, actually. I think they were 12, about to turn 13, when they came into so we were living in Charleston, South Carolina. Do you mind a little quick backstory?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Great.
we were living in Charleston, South Carolina, Mount Pleasant to be exact, and we would spend every summer in New Brunswick, Canada. So just for anybody that doesn't know geography, no big deal. New Brunswick's right beside Maine. So I grew up an hour from the border of Maine on the coast. It's New England. It's all one and the same, right? So we would spend every summer up there in my grandmother's old house, which is like 800 square feet, 4 of us, all summer beside my parents. And I used to tell the kids about growing up there. We had 2 TV channels. There was no internet or cell phones. I mean, I'm older, obviously. And so how did I entertain myself as an only child? I went in the woods. I went exploring. I went up brooks to see how far I could go up and find like a lake or something. So I told the girls all of this as they were young. So one day, when they were 12, going on 13, they came into into the living room where I was working for my company remotely, like on the commission. Dad, take us up the brook where you used to go fish for your grandmother and explore. And I said, guys, I'm busy. I'm working. I don't have time. And they persisted. And then I just had this Cats in the Cradle, that old song went off in my head. And I'm like, why are you saying no to your daughters? Like, what are you doing? So I said, okay, I need an hour, put a day pack together, and we'll go up, and here's what to put in the pack, and we'll go up and we'll explore. Well, it's not easy. We bushwhacked and rock hopped, and there were bugs, and they weren't used to any of this. But that's where the bug came for them. And so when we got back to South Carolina, we started doing some day hiking in the Francis Marion National Forest, the Allendale Passage, other places like that. And finally, one day, they came to me and said, Dad, we want a backpack, and we'd like to start a YouTube channel for backpacking. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how did we get here? But
Should have said I had work.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So that's how it started. And this was 2015, 2016. YouTube's a whole different thing now than it was then.
Sure.
So you had really good backpacking videos. You have good ones now. That's the wrong way. I don't want to put it that way, but they were all long form, like ours. 1 hour. 2 hours, how much time you have, like that kind of thing. But there were really good ones, and we would watch them together, the 3 of us, and we would get excited. Whoa, we could go there. That's how it started.
Yeah.
And they were the drivers of the whole thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
So give me more of your background, because you mentioned that you were just doing exploring in New England. Were you doing proper backpacking? Like, were you getting out on loops, through hikes? Like, what style of adventuring were you doing?
No, we didn't really have that. So we would go out and lug an old canvas tent in the middle of winter out to these areas and then try to camp, like stuff like that. So no, I mean, I was always wanting to be in the woods or exploring and things like that. I didn't really start my own backpacking until I was in my very early 20s, living out in Western Canada, going to school, and started hiking in the Rockies. And like a lot of things, then kids come along, or, life changes, and then you leave it for a while. And then you come back to it again for a while. And that happened to me 2 or 3 times during my life until we started this in like 2016. And I haven't really, left it since. But life does happen. But I think it's very telling. An only child playing in the woods by himself doesn't mind solo backpacking or getting out and doing these kinds of things. But I was always trying to spend time in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were 12 or 13 when you first got into it with them.
Yep.
How did you figure out their gear?
Oh, that's trial and error. And thank goodness for REI. And I never abused the return policy of REI. Never, never, never. But at least we had the opportunity to really try some gear. Not out camping, because I didn't want to get it dirty or anything like that. We were very respectful. But, I mean, the number one, so boots and backpack, that was really the key. We made some adjustments along the way with other things like sleeping pads that sounded like a bag of chips all night and stuff like, we've all been there, right? But really the backpack was the important thing. And the boots were the important thing. So I would read, there's a website that does reviews. I don't know if I can mention it or not.
Yeah,
Outdoor Gear Lab. I mean, they buy their own stuff.
Awesome
Yeah,
stuff.
they do. And they review gear, and they bought it, and they are doing their own thing. And so I'm like, well, okay, so I'll start reading. So we would start with the top picks from the website. And if her foot didn't fit that boot, fine, we'll take it back and we'll get the other boot. And backpack's the same. Like Olivia was hard to fit for a backpack for a while. She had an Osprey that wasn't fit for her properly. And then I used to use an Osprey Zenith, which is like this expedition pack. They're discontinued now. But they had a Xena or something for women at the time, and Olivia couldn't wear that. 1 mile we did, and it hurt. So I think they're Deuters now. I think they both use Deuter packs now. So that was a lot of trial and error and funding. But just to put a point on that, I mean, it was important for me that they carried all their own gear. Now, when we did longer trips when they were younger, I would bring a few things for emergencies, but they carried their own everything. So if something were to happen to me, they would have everything they needed with the exception of a tent, because we did split, when they were younger, we split a 4-person hotel from Big Agnes, I call it, for the 3 of us. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they never would have gone out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are they carrying their own food also?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And fuel, spare fuel. And they would carry, I would make them take a battery for the YouTube channel. Like, you have to bring a battery. Yeah, they carried everything for themselves. Huh. But that didn't just start out that way. We started out day hiking.
Yeah.
And then we had our first one night on the Foothills Trail, which darn near killed everybody. Because that's a hard, we did the whole Foothills Trail later. But I mean, so after that first one-nighter, I knew I needed to make some adjustments for everybody to be a little more comfortable.
What went wrong?
Well, I think they were too heavy.
Okay.
Yeah, there was too much.
Yeah. And
as you get older, we talked about earlier, like you get older, you start dialing gear way back. I mean, you guys are thru-hikers. Every ounce counts, right? And so a lot of gear adjustments. But you have to listen to the kids, because they will tell you, like, Dad, this hurts, that hurts, or this doesn't feel good. And I don't think gear should hurt. Really. So
it's a good so much to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the way that you make it sound makes it sound very easy. Like, they wanted to do it, I said yes, and we do it, and that's great. But if they're between 12 and 21, isn't like that's the age they're supposed to hate you, right?
Well, there was times of that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's a very tough age to take not only one person but siblings, because they also probably hate each other, and they're going through puberty. All these things are happening. Tell us about the less glamorous portions of getting through even just those first few years as teenagers.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, we were close family, and the girls, I mean, we did everything together, so there was already a dynamic. And I'm going to talk about this on the channel because I want parents to understand it's not always unicorns and fairies. I mean, but the tough part of it is not the interpersonal dynamics. I would counsel parents, though, so we all have a family thing going on at home, right? Try to create a different one on the trail. Don't bring what's going on at home onto the trail. And the girls never really did that. Like, they're identical twins. Everyone says, oh, they have a special bond. They fought, at home and on the trail. But the toughest part of backpacking with teenagers is just they need to find a way to get through the physical challenges that then turn into mental challenges. Oh, so do I. I mean, we've all been there, right? I mean, yeah, there's the wall. I need to push through the wall. But I wasn't perfect. And they're going to come on the channel this summer, and we're going to talk about that. And they're going to talk to parents about what I could have done better. So that's be a really good question for them that I'm going to ask. But then again, one of the girls said to me, she goes, Dad, we should talk about too, like, don't just take one kid out. She said, I think it was Olivia, Evelyn and I have shared experiences on the trail as siblings, which is interesting. So mostly the issues mostly on the trail were me being a bit of a drill sergeant. That's Evelyn's phrase. But you're trying to herd cats in the morning out of the tent. Let's go, we gotta go. And we had this 4-person tent, and we're going to national parks that have tent pads. You're like, I need to make sure I get a big enough tent pad for this giant tent we're in. So I had to manage that. But no, they were pretty good. They were pretty good. It was the physical challenges that then you have to be a supportive cheerleader. Oh, no, we got this. We can do this. That kind of thing. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, truth is, I try to keep everything positive, especially on the channel, because it's important. We're out there to have a good time, but it's not always, there are struggles. There's weather, there's bugs, there's hills, and then there's a false summit and another one, stuff like that. But you get to camp and then you rejuvenate, so.
Are they identical or fraternal?
Identical.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you don't have other daughters to compare this to, but do they get along better? Because they say that twins are best friends because they're born together. They do everything together. They share they share the same genetics in this case.
Right.
I guess compared to their peers, do they seem like they get along better? And how much of that would you attribute to the fact that they are twins versus the way that they were raised?
Oh, I think family dynamics, probably everything in that. They had their ups and downs getting along. Oh, at home or on the trail. Yeah, I don't think... it's a good question for them. I think we build twins up to this mythical thing where they can hear each other from a million miles away and stuff. I'm not sure I've seen that, to be honest with you. Maybe you will. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think so. But they are same age siblings. And I think that's the rarity of it, right? Mm-hmm. Typically you have an older sister, an older brother, younger, whatever. They are exactly the same age, going through exactly the same things at the same time. Mm. So that should give them, you would hope that would give them some sort of shared experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
You mentioned family dynamics twice. And just in terms of making it easier. So to me, it sounds like a lot of the success that you've had backpacking with your kids comes from work that was put in before even backpacking with your kids. And I think a lot of people that look into backpacking with kids look into, we're going to do this trip, here's the date of it, how do I make sure this trip is successful, versus what you're saying, which essentially is from years 0 through 12, a lot went into prep to make sure that from 12 to 21, the backpacking portions went smoothly. So can you talk about what really set you up for success from their 0 to 12 years?
Like I said, I think we were a close family. Like we did everything together. Like their mom and I would go out once in a while on a date night. But if we were going out to dinner, we took the kids. Family vacations, family. Like they were very close with both sets of grandparents and still are. Like we were just always together. And we weren't perfect, of course. And then there's, times when you're maybe on edge about, not you, but, you're on edge about something and then you might maybe not handle a situation the way you want, but then you go and talk about it. And skipping ahead, one of the things I made sure I did with backpacking was that they were involved in the planning and they were involved in making choices, and that kind of thing. So they felt like they were responsible for certain things. And, these were kids that got great grades in school, but we never pressured them for that. You know what I mean? We let them do their thing. And if there was something to deal with later, we would. But I remember that they always joke about, you didn't care about our grades. Well, you were doing a good job, but do you want me to hover over you? You know, are you going to do your homework? Like, we didn't do that. So I don't know if I answered the question, but we just we were just a close together family, and wasn't always perfect, of course, but if something went wrong, you talked it out and you tried to make it right. And communication, I think is the key. You have to be a parent, but you can be a positive one. That's your goal.
Mm.
You mentioned the YouTube channel was their idea.
It was, yeah.
Are you reluctant to pull them into, I mean, this is, you said 2016?
Yeah.
So I guess
early days.
Yeah, this is pre-social media.
It's pre all the bad stuff that you're probably going toward now.
Yeah. But were you reluctant at all to follow that track, or were you excited by the fact that they wanted to do this project with you?
Well, I didn't know enough about it really at the time to know what we were getting into. I think the first time it struck me that maybe I needed to be careful was a few comments we got on the channel about the girls. And back then, I didn't know you could turn off commenting for moderation and stuff. Like, wasn't even thinking about it. I was running a business and we did this for fun. So there was a few times when there were some comments made, and I had to delete the comments. And so moderation I still have on. It's just a habit now. I want to see what people are going to say before I let them say it.
Yeah.
Because it has changed. You know, again, as I said earlier, back then, YouTube was a whole different thing. There was no Instagram, I don't think, or there certainly wasn't a TikTok. So these short hits and swipes and stuff, and people just coming in and doing drive-by comments, I mean, it wasn't like it is now. I would wonder how I would handle a YouTube channel right now with 13-year-old identical twin daughters. Like, I wonder how I would manage that in this environment. Yeah. But we weren't on Instagram or Facebook or anything. I am now, because I'm trying to do this more often, but full time. But I mean, yeah, we just published YouTube videos. Yeah. It was pretty easy to manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How involved were they in terms of the dynamics of the channel itself? Like, are you doing all the behind the scenes management? It sounds like you were obviously doing the comment moderation, but in terms of like how to edit the videos or certain approaches from a marketing side, like how involved were they?
Not much. In fact, Olivia promised she would edit the videos. Sorry, dear. She did, and then she never did. So I was left there to wing this. Like, we had a little GoPro when we first started, and then we graduated up to different stuff. But I mean, the channel's still important to them. Like, if I would take somebody out on a hike on the channel, like, they weren't necessarily happy about that. Dad, that's ours. Mm-hmm. You know, and I kind of goofed up that way a little bit. Not now. Not hiking with my friends like Scott or Ann and Jim, like anybody that comes out with me now. That's different. But back, when I first had other people on the channel, that they were a little bit, not jealous, but just like, whoa. Why am I not being consulted on this? Mm-hmm. So you see what I mean? Like, they were high school kids eventually, and they were busy with other stuff, but they cared. So if I went off sideways somewhere, then I mean, they weren't too happy about it. Yeah. So
you mentioned in the early days that you're doing a lot of coaching from like a physical perspective, like encouraging them, letting them know that they're doing a good job. Did they have to get over a hump in order to keep with backpacking? Because I know those early days can be very tough, like when you don't know what you're doing, when the gear doesn't fit right, when you're not physically adjusted. How much work did it take from your standpoint to keep them interested in that sport of backpacking?
I don't think I had to do much, frankly, because it was their idea. And they're type B fun people, right? So when it's over and they see the video, hey, but it can be a struggle out there. And there were times, and I won't say who or what, but there were a few times on the trail where not finishing was discussed. And I tried to pull back as much as possible and let them, because it would usually be one or the other if it happened. It didn't happen very often, but I can remember one time right now where somebody wanted to stop, and I'm like, well, okay, we're at an access point. Like, this is it. Like, you need to decide, because we'll have to go out this way and then call your mother and have her come, get you, because the car was somewhere else, right? So it was a walkthrough, as they call it, point to point. And the other sister, I don't know how she did it, but she managed to do it. And then we finished the Foothills Trail in South Carolina, which is really, it's like this. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. So you get to Burles Ford, and you're like, well, are we going to get out of here? What's happening?
Yeah.
And they pushed each other through it. So that, you talked about the whole sibling thing. I mean, that's a moment that I'm proud of, very proud of.
Yeah.
And then it happened again in the opposite, but that was more of an altitude thing, I think. And we got her through that one as well, and everything was fine.
When they're having the disagreement, are you just totally stepping back, or are you trying to guide the conversation in one direction or another?
It's been so long, I don't really remember. I mean, I wish they were here, because I could just sit back and listen.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
And they're probably, when they watch this, they're going to be like, Dad, sorry, kids. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I have moments of snappy dad. I'm serious. Like, I was tired too. Like, on that same Foothills Trail hike, there was one day that they wanted to push me to Lake Jocassee, and I'm like, dude, we're stopping over here. No, you're coming. We're going to go further. I could hardly talk at the end of that day. I was like, And, so I'm sure I was snappy dad more than once. Yeah. But that's not stuff for video. That's family stuff. Like, you try to keep, that's why, the videos are usually we're happy and everything. But you don't expose that stuff to a YouTube audience, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's not fair to the kids either, because everybody's tired.
Sure.
So, yeah, but no, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
They will answer it in the comments section below.
What is it like teaching 2 young girls to poop in the woods?
I didn't teach them.
Really?
No.
They just were happy to go do it?
Well, we don't forget, like, if you go back and look at the videos, most of the places we went, except the Foothills Trail and a couple others, most of the places we went had places to go. So an outhouse.
Yeah.
Or a pole in a hole, as I call it, or a barrel, or some space capsule looking thing. I didn't. They helped each other.
Huh.
Yeah. And as, I have to say, as a dad, I'm not going over there to help with that when you're 13.
Yeah.
There's a line there for me, right? If they were 6 or 7, that's a different ballgame.
Sure.
But they helped each other.
I would think there'd be pushback. Like, when I started the PCT, I pushed back myself, and I was in my 20s.
Like cat hole stuff.
And I was, I was like, I can make it to town. And then finally there's a time you can't make it to town, and you have to face reality.
Yeah.
I needed encouragement then. I needed someone to stand guard. Like, I just was not willing to do it.
So you had a trail family at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good.
But I just remember, for me, that was like a mental hurdle to get over. So that's really good that they didn't have that.
They didn't seem to. I never really heard about it.
Yeah.
And I just let them kind of manage it. But again, early hikes, when we started doing the national park stuff, there was an outhouse. So that wasn't too bad. But nature calls anywhere. You may not be in a campsite. So, yeah, they did really well. It's funny you bring that up, because I just, like, one of those moments, like, wow, they did that themselves.
Yeah, you're gonna leave this and you'll be like, I got really lucky.
Oh, no.
They were great.
I definitely got really lucky. Yeah.
So anyone who spent enough time on trail has encountered at least one, and oftentimes many oh shit moments. Like, I stepped into something that I was not anticipating. That feels bad when you're by yourself. I imagine that when you've got your kids with you, that level of fear or anxiety or whatever you want to call it is even more pronounced. Can you recall a specific situation where something like that happened and how you dealt with it?
There wasn't I got a good example, actually. There wasn't a time when while we were hiking where I thought, oh boy, no. But there was a time on our very first Rocky Mountain backpack. Like, I hiked in the Rockies, as I mentioned earlier, but I hadn't had the girls out. And this was our big trip to do the Molar Loop. And we're at a hotel, and I'm looking out at the mountains, and I'm going, what am I doing taking these guys out there? Like, this isn't going to be easy. Who knows what could happen? Like, I burped, and they thought it was a bear. Like, they saw a porcupine and thought it was a bear. Like, I wasn't sure what I was getting us into, and there was a moment of doubt. And then we got out to a campsite called Molar Creek, which is hard to find. The trail's gone. They're in the middle of nowhere. It's beautiful. Like, I've been there again. And I'm like, what if I can't find the track to get out of here? Like, I know I'm going up this valley. I mean, I had some self-doubts, actually, about what I was getting them into. And would I be prepared enough if a situation came up and I had to do something? Like, could I do it?
Yeah.
And that's just loving your kids. I know it's a responsibility thing, but yeah, no, that was Yeah. And then as we got going along, it's like, wow, okay, well, we're fine, whatever. Look at that scat, that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, no, I wasn't sure I was up to it. Yeah.
Do you find that you prepare more when you're taking your girls with you as opposed to you doing something by yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Like, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? But I will say, because their mom didn't do much backpacking, she came out later. There was a joke early on in the series, like on the channel, where where's mom? She doesn't pee in the woods, that kind of thing, right? Like, so. But she did come out, and we had some nice times. But I mean, I just lost my train of thought. Where were we?
Preparation.
Yeah, I mean, I prepped ahead of time for everything that could go wrong, basically. I still do. Oh, back to the mom. Got it. I'm back. Denise made us carry it was a Spot at the time. So we had to have a communication device. So I knew, and this was before they were really popular. Some people had PLBs and stuff, right? But I mean, I knew that if I had to, I could press the button. But we were never, except when Evelyn and I did the South Boundary Trail in Jasper, which was super remote and crazy. We were never too far from too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still using the Spot?
I'm on an InReach Mini 2
Okay.
at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. And people are like, why do you want that out there? People are messaging you. Like, I don't care. The messages don't really bother me.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you use one?
I'm currently on a Zoleo.
Oh, you're on a Zoleo. Yes. I just read about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Talking about just like the potential for scary things to happen, and especially when you're doing hikes in Jasper and Banff and Western Canada, have you had any scary animal encounters with the girls?
Not with the girls. No, not with the girls. I'm very lucky that way. I did mention the porcupine. So we're at a campsite called Fish Lakes in Banff on the Molar Loop. And the girls went off to use the outhouse, and they didn't take their bear spray. Now, a lot of people get complacent with bear spray. I understand that. This is their first time in the Rockies. So they're going to the outhouse, and it's the porcupine. And from a distance, and porcupines can be pretty big. They can look like a bear cub, or something like that. The girls thought it was a bear. Scared them to death. They didn't have their bear spray or anything like that. But the three of us hiking, no. Evelyn and I on the South Boundary did see I now know what hightailing it means with a deer. And we're like, oh, look at that deer going over there. And then we look like this, and there's a giant wolf chasing this deer across the river that we couldn't ford, so we had to find a new way to go. But yeah, that was like, she's like, should I get my bear spray out? I'm like, no, honey, the wolf's not coming across this raging river. But yeah, so I've been startled in the woods. Marmots. Oh, marmots. You're walking along, it's nice and quiet, and they're over, then they whistle. But no scary moments, no. I've had them by myself, but not with the girls.
Okay, tell me about the ones by
Thank
yourself.
goodness. Well, I mean, the bear last summer was scary. I was alone on something called the Clearwater Red Deer Circuit, and a buddy of mine, Phil, had spent a night with me in like a day and a half, basically, and then I came into the more remote region of the Front Ranges of Banff. And I hadn't seen animals for days. So I come up something called Peters Creek Trail, and then you get to Divide Pass, and then there are animals everywhere. And it was amazing. I'm like, oh, this is cool, finally. And then I see it coming toward me. And anything, if you've been bluff charged by a grizzly?
No.
Okay, have you?
No.
Okay, so everything you imagine it is exactly what it is. Like, you can see these shoulders just coming at me. So
Chaunce is heading into grizzly territory in 2 days.
So
I unlocked a new fear recently I'm dealing with. We'll get into that later.
Oh, good. I want to hear about that.
I actually looked at this and thought this could be helpful.
What are you looking at?
The timing of this.
Oh,
the timing of this interview could be helpful.
You're not going to like the ending
for my
of
selfish
this particular
needs.
story. Chaunce.
No, I don't think I am.
No, this one isn't good. I don't think. We're not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, the bear ended up bluff charging me 3 times, all just because I was yelling out, "Hey, bear." And that's what happened the first time. I'm alone. You guys have done so much backpacking. You get into this mode. You're like narrowed. You're just like here. You're going down the track, and everything's narrowed in and simple. And then this happens. And so he or she, we think she came at me and stopped quite a distance, and that's where I got the video and the picture. How dumb is that, though, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, let me get my camera out and get a video of this. But I wanted to talk about it because I knew what I had to do. I either had to back up, or there was a way I could get way up around to the left of it. So then she came at me again and got a lot closer. And at that point, I started clacking the trekking poles together. And I wasn't even thinking yet about my bear spray. I was just like, back off, basically. Well, then I got looking around to see where I could escape to, and then I lost her. Gone. In the willows somewhere. Probably went back to digging. So so way up around, I got way up high. I thought if I'm up high and she comes at me, this is going to be great for the spray. And then I got to the pass, and then I saw this digging. Well, obviously it was her digging, but I didn't know. So when I've just had this encounter, so I yelled out, "Hey, bear," again, and then I turned around and she comes out again from the third time. So I did a lot more miles that day than I had anticipated because I wanted to get as far away from that bear as possible because that behavior wasn't, to me, normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is she just bluff charging from far enough away that you don't need to use the bear spray yet? Because this is a conversation I had today. Again, we have recently unlocked a new fear of mine, and now we're processing how to deal with it, which is grizzly bears. Mm-hmm. I've hiked through the PCT in Northern Cascades. They have grizzly warnings. I've done day hikes in Banff. I've done day hikes in Jasper.
Yep.
But overnighting in the Tetons is in the forecast for later this week.
Oh, where are you going?
The Teton Crest Trail.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Except now I'm realizing that my normal nighttime sleep anxiety that I have on trail is really bad with the idea of grizzly bears because I just can't get out the thought of them dragging you out of your tent and you becoming just bear food. And so today the conversation was, do we bring two cans? Should I bring 2 cans of bear spray in case? What if I use one? Because I get charged and I have to use one, and then I don't have bear spray. And now I'm out here in the middle of nowhere with no bear spray. So do I bring a second bear spray, or at what point do you start packing your fears? You know?
That's interesting because when we started hiking the longer trails, like the north boundary, south boundary ideas that we had, I thought about taking 2 cans of bear spray, but those are 100 miles.
Yeah.
And you're nowhere near anybody.
Yeah.
So there's no way to get out. You would have an escape route to get out if you had to on the Crest Trail.
Have you ever fired the bear spray? Shot it off?
Yeah, expired stuff.
Do you, but not in actual charging circumstances?
No, and even in this situation, I didn't, yeah.
Cause my brain's wondering, do you go through a full can on one spray? Do you just hold it down until there's nothing left to hold down, or do you get a couple uses?
Well, I think you could get it depends where the bear is. If the bear is, if we're this close and I can just go, one puff's going to do it. Have you ever had that on you?
No.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's just
I hope
awful.
So.
I just
I hope it's really bad.
I dropped a can last summer and it exploded in the trailhead parking lot, and I got some on me, and then I started and it's like, whoa, yeah, it's bad. I would puff it. I would hope. It depends on the encounter. You may have to empty the whole can. It depends on the wind too, right? And the terrain, where am I? Where's the bear?
Yeah.
I think you'd go on gut instinct at that point, but it wouldn't hurt you to try to deploy a can somewhere.
Sure. Maybe I'll get a spare.
We'll get an inert. No, they sell inert practice cans.
Really?
Yeah, with no pepper in them. So I would, if you're really worried about it, I would suggest practicing.
Well, I freeze under pressure. That's one of my skills.
Oh, that could work with a bear.
I just freeze and I don't know what to do, and then time passes and it's well, why didn't you do any? I don't even make a noise, and it's why didn't you do anything? And I'm just I froze. Sorry.
Do you want me to charge at you so we can practice?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Patreon.
And you can spray me.
That's a Patreon episode right there.
It's funny for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that because you're a very experienced backpacker.
Oh, I'm a chicken.
But to have that. That's amazing. Because a lot of people don't even want to do this.
Well, it's hard because this whole weekend I've been thinking of ways I could tell Elise that I can't go. I'm I'm sick.
How about over a podcast?
I've literally thought this throughout weekend. I was I could be sick. And then I'm but I can't because I'm going to Stu's episode. I can't not be sick for that and suddenly be really sick. I've thought this through.
You did have a cough earlier, just for the record.
No, I thought I could play that up, but
then
I thought I'd have to then explain why I didn't tell you guys. It's just there were flaws in the plan. But I've been anxious to the point where I've been thinking of ways to get out of it. But ultimately, kind of my mindset is I can't not do things because they're scary. That just can't be an option. And so I have to just do it anyway. And with a certain extent, because for things like the Sierra and the PCT, with my height, with my structure, with everything that I was working with, I didn't feel like I had the skill set needed. And there's a point where it's doing it to do it and doing it in a way that's stupid. And I try to just, if the real reason is simply fear and not outside dangers, you got to do it anyway. But man, I messaged my doctor today and I was like, can I have more of those pills that you give me for panic attacks? Because I think I might need them to sleep.
I thought you were going to ask for a doctor's note to get out of that backpack.
Yeah. Can you tell my friend I can't go?
I wear earplugs in my tent at night.
I put on an audiobook with a sleep timer.
Yeah, perfect.
And like preferably a boring one, because that will really put you out. But it's just any little twig, even on the Foothills Trail. There's no predators in the Foothills Trail. Any twig, I'm like, you know.
A squirrel sounds like an elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's what we're dealing with now. So all this bear talk, I'm like, give it to me.
Not to double down on your fear, but we should finish your story.
Yeah.
Because there's another chapter.
Well,
I thought that was it.
We think. I mean, we think that there was a. Oh, see, do we really want to talk about this now?
No, tell me.
Yeah, it makes for good content.
So I was up in Grand Prairie with a girl that did the PCT, and we were just hanging out, like we knew each other, and we're just going on some day hikes, and my phone blows up. So a few weeks after I was on that trail, in an area where I went very close to where I camped the night I saw the bear, 2 people and their dog were killed by a 25-year-old non-lactating female grizzly bear in poor health. I have no clue whether that was the same bear, but everybody else seems to think it was, based on the behavior that I reported to the park. Although it wouldn't have been enough for a closure. What's a bluff charge? Whoop-de-doo. Like, they're not going to close a part of the park for that. But everybody's pretty convinced it's probably the same bear, including Brian Patton, who just wrote a blog post about it. So a little sobering.
Where can we pinpoint what they did wrong? Not that I want to put blame on them, but
Nothing.
like, were they not carrying bear spray?
They had bear spray.
Were they not using a bear can? Were they eating dinner where they camped? Like, what can we find that I could take and say, I won't do that?
Nothing, except
Great.
the only thing people, they had set up a good camp. Parks Canada said the camp was set up properly. Their food was far away. Everything was clean that way, but they did have their dog with them. And I'm not listen, please. I've no dog in this hunt. But dogs and grizzlies are known to have issues. All bears, dogs don't really get along, and grizzlies can see dogs as prey. I'm not saying that's what happened. I have no idea what happened. But if you have a perfectly set up camp and you're in your tent at night and it's kind of raining outside or whatever it was, low ceilings, and something happens like that, there's, you've got a combination of things that could be. It could have been the dog. Maybe the bear thought of it as a prey animal. And here's what happens. You guys have pets?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a dog, and something attacks your dog. What's your response going to be?
Throw myself in between them.
Yes.
And say goodbye.
And then what happens? So we're always taught with bears, if you come up upon a bear with a kill, get out quick. Well, now that if this is what happened, now that dog has become like an elk, like it's just a kill for the bear. Now the bear's going to protect its food source. This is highly speculative, and I don't want to offend anybody. We'll never know if that was the case.
Well, I think even removing them, like this particular group of people from the equation, this is great conversation, because even this morning I texted Zach and Elise, and we were having a conversation about my dog Harper. And is it better to bring Harper or leave Harper at home when you're in grizzly territory? Because on one hand, you don't want the bear to see the dog and see that it's small and view it as prey for the daytime portions. But then at night, the nice thing about Harper is she barks at something if it comes into camp. So when you said, have you been bluff charged by a grizzly? No, but I was bluff charged while in my tent by something on the Colorado Trail. And Harper was barking at it, and I'm like, bark more, bark more, bark more, and it was so reassuring to fall back asleep, to know if something comes back, she'll bark, and I'll know about it, so I can sleep because she'll let me know. And so we had this conversation this morning. So those people aside, this is great information for like anyone who's considering, do I bring the dog or not bring the dog in these circumstances?
I think it's a tough choice for dog owners, frankly.
Yeah.
And I don't have I'm not a bear expert, obviously, and but I probably would not take a dog into grizzly country.
I'm leaving the dog at home.
I'm just saying I probably wouldn't do it. Now, I know friends of mine are going to watch this in Canada and go, "Oh, take my dog." I mean, they do, and that's fine. But it also depends on the dog, the temperament and stuff, right? But I'm not an expert on this, but I would not.
Yeah.
I would say not for myself.
I read something today that apparently ranchers are going to start turning to using dogs to protect their herd from grizzlies specifically.
Sure.
Granted, ranchers don't necessarily view dogs as pets and more so tools for their herd. But yeah, apparently they can scare away grizzlies, but yeah, that's not a game that I want to play in the backcountry.
Yeah.
No, me neither.
Well, that's another thought I also have, and I know you're not a bear expert, so feel free to decline from answering or giving input on any of this. But that was another thought I had with her while she barks at night if something comes close. And I thought about it when you were saying that you were yelling at this bear. Is another thing that I always get in my head, and this is where I freeze up, is because I can't make a decision. But it's like, if you see the bear and the bear doesn't see you, is it worth yelling the hey bears and letting the bear know you're there and like then making that like, oh, hi? Or if the bear doesn't know you're there, why not just, do you just let it go and not know that you're there? So when do you make that decision?
That's it. If the bear hasn't seen you, don't make yourself known to the bear. That's what I've been taught. You have to make a judgment call. Like if your catwalk is this narrow and the bear's right there, like what are you going to do?
Sure.
But yeah, no. If I've seen a bear and it doesn't see me, I'm not making myself known to the bear. That
do you
would
think
be
it
mine.
could smell you though? Like would it just know of you anyway?
It depends if you're upwind or downwind. Hard to say, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say, this is a pet peeve of mine, and you wouldn't do it. Don't use bear bells. Can I just say that? Like they should be banned. People go ding, 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 they're walking along, and I don't hear them till they're 10 feet away from me. And what it stops people from doing is calling out with their human voice to alert a bear you're in the area because they think that little ding, ding, ding is actually doing enough work. It's a placebo, and I think it's kind of dangerous, frankly. Yeah, I'm doing a rant on that soon, so I'm just practicing now.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because I wasn't aware that was counterproductive, so that's interesting.
Well, it's not, the decibel level's not high enough, and if you're in a windy area or along a creek that's rushing, you're not going to hear the bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your surprise of Chaunce's fear, really neither of us you haven't done any. I've done very minimal backpacking in grizzly territory. Mm-hmm. I've done some in the winds, which there's debate as to how many.
There is a debate, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all of our experience with bears is black bear, and
right.
like those are giant raccoons.
Yeah, and they rarely. Well, I had an encounter with a black bear last year. We were coming, a group of us, we were coming out in Banff National Park, and we come up over a rise, and for once I was in the lead, because I'm usually in the back filming, right, like videoing. And I come up over the rise, and there's a beautiful giant black bear, right? And I'm like, oh, bear, like to the group, bear. And I'm about to get the video camera. It was far enough away, it wasn't an issue. And then my friend Scott goes, bear, hey! And the bear looks at us and goes, oh, and then goes off the trail. Like he was so annoyed he had to leave the trail.
Yeah.
But you never know. Black bears can be issues as well.
Yeah. So that article, I just found it again, is actually from Outside, and this was published recently within the last week. Can dogs protect you from grizzly bears? Science says yes. The first paragraph, think your trusty dog is no match for a ferocious grizzly bear. Turns out the simple presence of a livestock guardian dog can reduce visits from grizzly bears by 87.8%, according to a new study conducted in Montana. You guys can read the full article if you want, but
interesting.
Who knows what variables are different in that circumstance, if livestock guardian dogs are trained differently or something. But yeah, just an interesting tidbit.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. So now that's confusing even more for me.
Yeah, but I do agree with Zach with the ranchers, where if it is a livestock guardian dog, there's less emotional attachment from the owner. I think I would get in my own way because I would just be like, take me too.
Well, don't forget the rancher has also carrying a rifle of some sort, probably. And the other thing I'd say is if a grizzly bear is coming into a livestock area, it's looking for something to eat.
Yeah.
So bears want to, and we know this, bears want the easiest source of food they can possibly find because they need so much of it. So if they're coming into a livestock area looking for an easy meal, that dog's going to make it difficult for the bear. And yeah, I would imagine it would drive it off most cases. Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah.
One more bear question before we move on, just because I get to be selfish when I sit in this chair and ask questions that are self-serving. So a lot of our permits are based on availability of campsites. So we have some days that we're doing 15 miles. We have other days we're doing 5. And when you're doing a 15-mile day, it's very easy to say we will stop and have dinner 2-3 miles before we get to camp, and then there's no smell of foods at camp. When you're doing a 5-mile day, it's like, well, do we do a side hike for dinner, or do we just eat lunch at 11 a.m. and then fast for the rest of the day? How do you handle your food situation at camp in terms of how far you're eating and keeping sense from where you're actually sleeping?
I've never done I've read this a lot, that people will do that. They'll stop early. I think this must be in areas of high bear concentration or something, or where bears might even be somewhat used to seeing people. A little bit of habituation there. We've never altered our behavior in the Rockies, whether it's a short day or long day, like Canadian Rockies.
Yeah.
We just go to camp and set up, and we know how far away to eat and how far away to store our food if there's no storage facilities available. In most parks there's an eating area, pick a little table of some sort. So, but when I'm out in more remote areas, I have to duplicate that myself. But I don't typically, now if I spill something on me, that's a whole different ballgame.
Goes in the fire.
Yeah, well, if you can have a fire, sure. But yeah, no, I've never really done that. Never really gone off trail to eat somewhere, but I have read it, and I've read it from very, very experienced people who that's kind of their preference. Our concentration of grizzly bears, though, in Banff and Jasper, where I do, let's say the majority in the past of hiking, is not nearly as great as the concentration in Yellowstone from a per square mile. So seeing one, well, last year, that was the first grizzly bear I've ever seen in the wild. It was last summer, and I've done thousands and thousands of miles. Yeah.
Does it make you more spooked going back to areas like that after now having seen one?
No, not in that way, but I will say I did a hike with a friend in from Yaha Tinda Ranch in Banff, where they keep their horses, where this Banff and Jasper keep their patrol horses, right? And we're walking out toward the area where this event happened to these people and their dog, and that crossed my mind. Not that I was worried, because that particular animal's no longer with us. But you think about it. You think about the people, you think about the animal, you think about the first responders that had to go in. And what's that like, arriving at 1 a.m. and, so it makes you think about the humanity part of it. But it doesn't make me worry about going out. Yeah, I mean, listen, stuff's going to happen. I mean, I have to drive to Montana. I mean, who knows? It's a busy road. I feel safer out there most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knock wood.
Yeah.
Exactly. That could be famous last words.
Yeah.
Just last interview.
Just to put a bow on the previous Grizzly story, so they were able to put an SOS message out through their inReach, and it was something to the effect of like bear attack bad.
That's what it was.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
And they weren't able to come in to rescue them that night because the weather was too bad. And
by helicopter. Yeah. They did get there at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
But
and when they got there, apparently the bear had bluff charged the people coming to assess the scene, and they had to shoot it and kill it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which I think they would have done anyway.
Sure.
And then do is it called a necropsy? Like they could an autopsy of the bear, basically, see what's going on.
Yeah. Did they determine, was the bear, was it just sick? That's what you had said that, right?
Old and sick. And then when I read Brian's thing, because Brian Patton and Bart, this book they wrote, the Canadian Rockies Trail Guide, they hiked every trail basically, almost, and they pushed a wheel around to do measurements and stuff like that. So these guys, when they've seen a lot, and he's pretty convinced that the behavior I saw, and then the behavior in this situation, is an old bear struggling to survive, maybe not, with it anymore. Stuff like yeah. So she came after them when they got out. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So we can't go in by helicopter, so we're going to have to go out. And getting out to the ranch takes forever from Banff. Yeah, a lot of respect for those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tad story.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some of the trails that you've done, because there's a lot on your list here that we certainly haven't ever talked about, and things that I'm not familiar with at all. And you can let us know which of these have been done with your daughters versus solo.
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah. So 2017, the Fundy Circuit.
Yep, that was with my daughters. That was their first multi-night backpack. So my idea, I didn't really think about it, but it was logical. Day hiking, gear, test the gear day hiking, do an overnight, reassess, and then you start building up multi-day stuff. So the Fundy Circuit's in Fundy National Park in New Brunswick. And so that was our first multi-day hike. That was the year we were going to do, I believe that's the year we did the Molar Loop too. And I was trying to build up their stamina for the longer days on the Molar Loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of miles are you doing with them?
Oh, I don't know. Because first of all, it's in kilometers.
Sure.
So then I have to 1.6 kilometers to a mile.
You can give us kilometers, and
But
I'll grab my
here's the main
calculator.
point. So the Molar Loop, let's just talk about that for a sec. So I could do that in 2 nights myself. That's a 2-night hike. I took 4 with them. The first day was 5 kilometers. So what's that?
3.1.
Yeah. And this last day was the same. So that's what I did. And when Ev and I did the South Boundary, which is 100 miles, basically, a little less now because of some problems with the trail access, we took every campsite available along the way. One day was a 9K day, one day was a 14K day, but we took every campsite. And that way, I never wanted to push, first of all, some of these trails, like the South Boundary, you don't know what you're getting into. Like, can I even get there? So I just, anyway. So mileage-wise, I tried to make sure it was easy as I could make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How different are the Fundy Circuit and the Fundy Footpath?
It's like the Francis Marion Forest and the Foothills Trail. One's pretty flat, not really flat, but yeah, the Fundy Footpath used to be like the Foothills Trail. Like, it's like this. And the volunteers have done such a great job over the last, say, 10 years since Nat Geo got a hold of it, and that it's a little more accessible now. But it's hard. It's a very hard trail. So here's a true story. So that Fundy Footpath video, we didn't finish because we were coming out to do the Molar Loop. And there was a day that we got to a certain situation at Quiddy River, and I realized I could tell, I could read the room. And I was worried that if I pushed them to finish the trail, an injury could happen. And Dad doesn't want to injure his kids, but then also we had this trip booked.
Yeah.
Flights, hotels, rental cars. I pulled them off the footpath the first attempt because it just wasn't the right thing to do at that time.
Yeah.
So, judgment call, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing for people with kids to hear that want to get into backpacking. Is like finishing shouldn't always be the goal.
No. Sometimes you have to be smart about it. Yeah.
So give us more details about the Molar Loop.
Oh, Molar Loop, yeah. So that's, you come in at Mosquito Trailhead in Banff National Park. You go up to North Molar Pass. If you catch it like we did the year we did it, it's one of the most spectacular, it's one of the most spectacular wildflower meadows in the Canadian Rockies. It's stunning. The pass is, she's steady. It's one of the higher passes for backpacking. Fish Lakes is a nice area. The Pipestone River is stunning. Mosquito Creek, I mentioned earlier, Molar Creek campsite, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. Hard walking through there, though, because there's the trail's all over the place. So that's a gorgeous hike. And I think I've seen a lot of families out there recently, too. So I think it's a great family hike if you can get through the Molar Creek trail area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been to Banff. I know you have. How difficult is the permitting process?
It depends where you want to go. So this is the issue right now we have in Banff and Jasper National Park, and Jasper in particular, but we'll talk about Banff. It's the same. They funneled people into certain areas, and the permit process is highly competitive. And there's no incentive right now to cancel your reservations, really, because you hardly get. Some guy posted on a Facebook group a couple weeks ago. He canceled a couple of campsites and got 11 cents back. Or I'm paraphrasing. It was nothing. It was less than $1.
Yeah.
But he did it so that somebody, if on the last minute, could go out and have the campsite. Right? Permitting is very difficult. Molar Loop permitting is extremely difficult, and I hope we're not responsible for that. But it's we may be.
Yeah. Is that one of the more popular videos?
Yeah. Well, yeah, now it's because it's older.
Yeah.
If you look at view counts. But what I'm noticing now is the more popular videos, so permitting is a problem, right? So what are people doing? They're looking for other places to go.
Yeah.
So when I look at YouTube analytics, because I'm on Instagram and stuff, but YouTube's really, that's it, right? But you look at analytics in January, February, March, people are watching my longer, more remote hikes. They're not looking at the Skyline Trail. They're not looking at places like that. They're looking at North Boundary, South Boundary, Clearwater Red Deer, Panther River. They're looking at all these crazy remote places. One, because of permitting, but two, I think backpacking's on a huge resurgence right now, and people want to get out there and explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that was something that shocked me about those parks, because that was the trip that I had gone on where I went to Banff and to Yoho for the first time. That was going to be the highlight of the trip. We were going to a ton of cool places, so everything was a highlight, but that was what I had been looking forward to the most. And we had planned 3 days for Yoho. We had planned 3 days for Banff. We didn't get any of the backcountry permits because this is before hiking Chaunce really took the stage. It was just, I want to go to cool national parks. And that specifically for those two parks shocked me, was if you aren't doing things in the backcountry and you're going to the Lake Louise or the Emerald Lake or the Moraine Lake, any of those big ones, I left after 2 days. I had 6 days planned, and I left because I just couldn't take being there, because I was shocked by even we wanted to do the hike to, it was like Kicking Horse River or something, and the parking lot went right to the natural bridge. And I thought there was going to be a little bit of a walk. And on all of these, it was like tour bus shuttle in, drop. It was like on, if you've ever watched SpongeBob, when the little sardines come out and flood the place. It was like that, and they'd take their pictures, they'd get back in, bus would leave, next one would come.
Yep.
How do you have fun in a place that's like that?
I don't. That's why I'm in the backcountry.
Yeah. Is it like it back there too, or is it get better?
Oh, no.
It has to get a bit better, obviously.
The backcountry's much different. So there's a quota system. There's only so many tent pads in a particular campsite. You're going to have company at night, which is why a lot of these hikes are great for newbies and people that want to get out, because you're going to have other tents, right? But for me to go out into the remote stuff, I mean, I'm paying the same nightly fee that you're getting at with bear boxes and all this fancy stuff, but there is nobody.
Yeah.
When I did the bear encounter we were talking about, I was out there, it was 150K, 145K. I was out there 7 days. I'd planned for 10 because I didn't know what the trail conditions were going to be like. And I didn't see another human until Phil came out for a day and a half. But there's no other humans out there, except the ends, the last two, like the first night and the last night, you know. So, if you want to go in the backcountry in Canada, just message me. I'll tell you where to go. Like, seriously, because the hidden gems, which we joked about earlier, I didn't want to give away. But I mean, some of them are on the channel. I can't help it.
Yeah.
But, there's great places to go that'll blow your mind that you may not see other people.
And that's what we're going to talk about on the Patreon.
Yeah. How do you enjoy solo backpacking versus doing it with your kids? Do you get, maybe lonely is the wrong word, but it's a very different experience to do it with members of your family versus going into these remote places by yourself?
Yeah, it is.
Not to say that you have a preference on one experience, but how did the two experiences compare for you?
I think lonely is a good word. I think sometimes when I am solo backpacking, I feel lonely. And it's not just the kids, but we have quite a group of friends now that we backpack, and we've got tons of trips planned for the summer. In fact, there's very little solo for me this summer. And it is a completely different experience. I loved backpacking with the girls. It's a defining thing in our life. It's led to weird things. Like we talked earlier about the RCGS. I'm here. I mean, seriously, like, you don't set out to achieve those things. They just kind of happened. Mm-hmm. So I loved backpacking with them, and I miss it a lot. And we keep talking about doing it, and I think it'll happen again at some point. Solo backpacking, I love that too for a lot of different reasons. But I would love, listen, if you ask me which one would I pick, let's go girls. Let's get back out there. Yeah. But I'm an only child, so the solitude and solitary stuff, I'm used to it. Uh-huh. I have a lot of friends and everything, but there's times on the trail you wish you see something, and you wish there was somebody there that could see it with you. But that's the cool thing about YouTube. I actually never really, and this is going to sound like, whoop, he's been alone too long. I never really feel alone because I'm talking to you when I'm making a video or something like that, you know. And if I see something amazing, I get the camera out to make sure I show it. Yeah. And so I know it's weird, right? But
I catch myself doing that, and I've had people ask about that, where on videos I'll be like, all right, we're going over this now, and then we're going to go to here. We're only doing 11 miles today. And they're like, who is we? Like, it's literally just you.
I do that too. I'm like,
I'm
we.
like, us, like me, you, us, like me, the camera, we. But it is nice because it makes it feel like you have someone to talk to.
It does. It's weird, though.
Yeah. And then you watch it back and you're like, ooh, I was alone for too long in that one.
Through hiking. You're alone a lot. Yeah.
How does your wife handle missing these core memories? Because I would imagine, it's got to be, in one way, easy if she is making the active choice that I'm not choosing to do this, but on the other hand, there has to be a level of FOMO involved in you're getting all this one-on-one quality time and forming all these memories that she's not there for.
Right. Well, I just clarify that it's my ex-wife.
Okay.
Just say, I'm just in case somebody's watching. But, well, there's nobody with you. I don't care anyway.
Backcountry magic.
Have you seen my hat? No wonder I'm single. I need to get a hat made that says that, actually.
No wonder I'm single.
Yeah, can you guys hook me up with that? Yeah. Well, because I have the one with the flaps. Remember Skirka years ago came out, he said to wear these flap hats. Like, it's beat up and it's just awful. Yeah. So this is a great question. My ex-wife, their mom, the joke was she wouldn't pee in the woods. That was the joke, right? And we were never competitive that way. I think she was because she grew up more in a city, I think she was worried for a while. And then I know she trusted me because we kept coming back. Like we survived. But then at the end, she did come out. And it's interesting because we were in Congaree National Park in South Carolina, which nobody even knows exists. Congaree National Park. And so we took the 4-person tent out, and Denise came out with us. And so the girls and I, at supper time, we're all sitting around talking, and the girls and I are just talking about all these shared experiences we had. And I remember Denise saying, this is a paraphrase, but she said something like, wow, you guys have really done a lot. And she wasn't upset about it, but I think she realized that, like when you're out there on the trail for a week at a time, that's a lot of time, like to spend together and to talk and to have these experiences. But I think she was generally happy for us. They did their own things. They had their own things they did that I didn't do as well. So I don't think there was any fear of missing out. Yeah. But,
Cool.
But I love that moment when she realized, like when she said, wow, you guys have really done a lot. Because it hit me. I'm like, I guess we have.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, I'm going to go through the trail resume here again. I'm not going to do everything because we've talked about some of these trails, but if I skip over anything that you think is worth talking about, do let me know. I know I'm not going to say this correctly. The Pipawai Trail. Oh,
that was just a day hike in Hawaii. We were on vacation. Yeah, that's gorgeous, by the way. There's a bamboo forest you go through, and when the wind, because bamboo's hollow, right? When the wind hits it, it's really kind of cool. Yeah.
Is this on the road to Hana? Is it that side of that?
I forget now. Okay. Yeah, we went through some like lava fields or something. That was really rough terrain getting into there.
Yeah,
but that was a great day hike. That was pretty stunning. Yeah.
I know one of the headline events is from 2019. You mentioned it a couple times now, the South Boundary Trail.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is very much worth talking about is that this is not only 100 miles, but you did that without any resupply.
Yeah.
How heavy is your pack? How long of a hike is this? Just walk us through the logistics.
It was 10 days. So I hit every campsite because at the time, the South Boundary, nobody really been out there. I couldn't find a video, I don't think, at the time to even see what I was getting myself into. But the North and South Boundary Trails, so quick backstory, Evelyn wanted to do the North Boundary Trail in Jasper really badly. It's 100-mile, the same idea, right? And they were boundary trails for patrols, ecological integrity, poachers, all that kind of stuff. But they're still there when the parks were created. So when I did the North Boundary the same year, I had the map, and Evelyn had planned the entire hike. And with sticky notes where we were going to stop, how long it was going to be. And we couldn't do the North Boundary because a couple of places were in flood. So that's the year we did the Brazo Loop and the Sawback Circuit, which you'll see there somewhere. But so I said to her, let's do the South Boundary together. Let's do the South Boundary. Just, and Olivia couldn't go. I said, just you and me. So we did. And I didn't know what we were getting into. So 10 days of food, 2 ursacks, basically. It was heavy.
Yeah.
But, the beginning of that trail is not too bad. Like, you can get a couple of days of food out of there. Like, what's the heaviest meal I have tonight on day one? Like, what can I eat? But, yeah, it was heavy. And I was using the Osprey Zenith at that point, too, which was like 5.5 pounds or something like that. So,
What's the literage on that one?
oh, I had the 88 and the 105.
Those are big packs.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I use a Gossamer Gear 60 now. I mean, and I can do 10 days in that pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, of the trails that you've done in the Jasper, Banff area, which would you recommend to somebody that wants to go out there with their kids?
Oh, you got to start with something easy. I mean, if you can get into Molar Loop, that would be great. I saw lots of kids out there last summer when I was finishing up Clearwater Red Deer. There's a lot of good one-nighters too, right? Like, you get the kids out for one night first and let's see what happens. Like, there's a campsite called Big Bend on the Chaba Trail on the Icefields Parkway in Jasper National Park. That's stunning. It's on the channel. It's ridiculous. And it's an easy hike. It's so easy to get in there. I did Saturday Night Lake, which is basically from the Jasper town site this year. And these are for my one-night series, right, where I'm trying to encourage day hikers to maybe try it or get the kids out or test gear, like blow the dust off, that kind of stuff. So those, I would suggest one-nighters to begin with, and then try to graduate up to maybe a three-nighter, once you sort of dial it down. Depends on the age of the kids. I got off the trail, the bear spray incident where I busted a can of bear spray and got it all over me. There was a couple there in the parking lot heading up 5 kilometers with a toddler. Now, the toddler wasn't going to carry anything or do much, but they were starting that early, and I was so happy to see that. It's like, you guys go.
Yeah.
But if you're a young couple with an 18-month-old child, I mean, and you're going to go out in the woods for a night in the backcountry of Banff National Park, you must have been loving it before you had the baby.
Yeah.
So that made me pretty happy to see. But start small. I would start with one-nighters, like I mentioned, to be honest. Yeah.
And not to bring all roads back to Rome, but you seem like someone who thrives in the communication department. And I know you didn't start backpacking with the girls until they were 12 or 13, but I think it could apply at that age just as much as like older single digits. How do you teach them about things that are dangerous, like potentially encountering a bear or something like that, without installing fear? Like, how do you teach them how to handle a serious situation should it happen without creating fear towards something like that?
Well, I think statistics help. So I got the girls involved. I made them read and learn about things. I taught them about bear safety. We were very careful about food safety early on. Like, I was a bit probably over the top. Somebody would spill a tiny thing on the ground and be, and clean it up type of thing. But I was being protective. But I think communication is key, and I think talking them through it. And I think statistically speaking, no matter what we talked about earlier in this video, the chances of having a negative encounter that I would be concerned about are very, very, very low.
Sure. And this could go for wolves. This could go for weather. This could go for snow. Or it doesn't have to just be bears.
Yeah, and we talked. So weather, there are a couple incidents where you're up high and you've got what looked like thunderstorms rolling through. And so I said, okay, girls, if we can't get down off this pass, where are we going to go? And, there's big drainages and stuff like that. And I said, okay, we'll go down there into that drainage. So it's just a conversation during the time. I don't think I ever freaked them out, really.
How do you keep yourself calm during those conversations? Because I'm sure they're picking up on your emotions,
because I'm focused on them. Protection. I'm protecting them. They're my kids. I'm not panicking. I'm in control. Or at least I'm, I'm showing that I'm in control. But I mean, they can read the room too, right? So, yeah, I was prepared. Always, for every eventuality. And if there was something, and I don't mean that I was prepared, but I needed to be prepared to take 13-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, or boys, doesn't matter, out into these places. Remember earlier I said I wasn't sure. I'm like, what am I doing? Am I really up to this? And so I was overly prepared in advance. I always tell people, did you worry on the trail? And I say, no, I worry before I go on the trail. So that everything that could happen, I've already kind of walked it through. Yeah. And afternoon thunderstorms, for example, in the Rockies are like special up there for sure. It's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you've done a good amount of backpacking in the U.S., what are some of the biggest differences of doing hiking and backpacking in Canada compared to the U.S.?
They're different geography. You get into some remote areas in Canada, like it's, and I don't want to say that there's, I have to be careful here. So things like in Jasper, for example, just feel a lot more rugged. Now, Yellowstone's got some sections like that. That's not what I mean. And so does even Rocky Mountain National Park. Like trying to get up to Boulderfield or something is like, But I mean, it's just different. Like even here, we're in Golden. I look over at the hills. Like you can tell we're getting south, right? Mm-hmm. You can just see the differences. So I will say that, like in the Bob Marshall, the grading of the trails is lovely down in the U.S. I mean, it's good. We were commenting on that last summer when we did the Chinese Wall Loop. We're like, man, these switchbacks are graded really well. Meanwhile, some places in Banff, you're doing this, trying to get up a hill. So, I mean, just different geography, just different topography, different feel. Yeah.
What about resupply? Because it seems like a lot of these backpacking trips is you're just bringing all of your food.
I've never resupplied.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm not a thru-hiker. I mean, God, I'd have to if I was doing like a GDT or something in Canada, which is the thru-hike I would start with.
Well, you've done 100-milers.
Yeah, but that's...
You could.
Yeah, I guess so. No, I've never... We just had a conversation before I came in here in one of the forums in Canada, like on the Facebook forums, and somebody's like, would you put a resupply here? And here's why I don't resupply on long hikes. Well, first of all, I go... These places we're talking about, the 100-milers, like, there's nowhere to resupply because it's impossible. But I'm a worrier, and I go out in the woods to relax. So I would not want to be on day 5 wondering if my food cache was still there with 5 more to go. And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's why I've never stored food anywhere. Yeah. Now, when we did the Swamp Fox Passage in Francis Marion, there's no water to speak of. So I did go out and in certain strategic places dropped, a couple gallons of water here and there so we could supply our water. But that was a different scenario because there was no water.
Yeah.
And that was 70-odd miles, I think, or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you're doing these more remote hikes with your daughters, are you having them navigate?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. I told you I haven't planned the north boundary. So there'd be a lot of times, like when we did, I remember one time on the Brazeau Loop, I said, okay, let's get out the map. And let's look at this valley, because you're going down a valley and then there's a head wall and then there's another valley, right? And I said, show me this on the map. And we would talk about stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the world's changed a lot. I get teased by friends that say, you don't take a paper map? No. But I know where I'm going. But I have the GPS. I use Gaia on my iPhone, and I download the layers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I did teach them about reading a map and declination and all that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah.
Tell me about the 10-day Rocky Mountain loadout.
So I just got my Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60, and I was graduating from the 88 or 105-liter Osprey, and I'm like, can I even take 10 days in this pack? I need to know. So I loaded up for 10 days, and I didn't do 10 days, but I wanted to see how it felt. And I have to say, I was going to stop at a certain campsite. The first time ever hiking with the Mariposa 60, I stopped at the campsite I was supposed to. I'm like, I can go further. And I did. And that was a real eye-opener for me. So, yeah, I can. The only thing that really changes for 10 days is your consumables. You know that. Yeah, it's just food and fuel. But I wanted to see if this pack could carry it.
Yeah.
And it did.
So are you using the Mariposa exclusively now, or does it just depend on?
No, well, until it falls apart. So I just had to order. They're awesome, by the way. But I just had to order a new sternum strap because mine snapped. And I am noticing on the hip belt where the shoulder harness comes down, I'm starting to see a lot of friction wear there. The bag will fall apart, but I'm going to use it till it falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a great bag.
Yeah. Yes. So what is the Ancient Wall? That's the one that you just referenced?
Ancient Wall. Oh, yeah, that's Jasper National Park. Yeah. Ancient Wall, Natural Arch. That's a very wild section of the park. I'm hoping to get back out there this summer and complete a loop that I've never completed. I've tried twice, and for various reasons. That's a really awesome area. Yeah, it's still bookable within the park, but it borders something called the Wilmore Wilderness Area, which if you pay $30 a year to the Alberta government, all of these public land use zones with random camping are yours. Mm-hmm. And some of the most glorious areas of our Rocky Mountains, I should say, are in public land use zones. Cataract Pass, Klein Pass, places like that. So yeah, there's so much to see. Yeah. So little time.
Yeah. I think my last trail specific question, before we get to that portion on Patreon, is you've done the West Coast Trail twice. Once solo.
Four times.
Oh, four
actually.
times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. That's good.
So you've done it with your daughters and solo.
Yep.
Compare and contrast those experiences. I guess all four experiences.
Well, I was excited for my daughters because I was like, oh, I hope they see whales. I hope they see something that's really cool. Because I had gone out the year before to do it solo, and they weren't thrilled that I had gone and done this by myself. And so the next year I took them out, and the opening sequence is a bunch of seals surfing in a wave. Like, it was amazing. And there's walruses everywhere. We did see whales. So for me, that was cool. And that's, one of the surprising things about this thing we did was they would get recognized. And it would always seem to happen on a day where they needed maybe a little boost or something, right? And we were on the West Coast Trail. And I had just published the video the year before, and people were watching it to plan their trips, which is kind of what's happened to us. They watch the videos to plan trips. And so the girls were walking through the campsite, and Libby comes up, she goes, Dad, I just heard someone say, how's the hike is here? And it really made them happy. So hiking with them on the West Coast Trail was, we hit different campsites. They had no problem doing it. They were singing, opera stuff, basically, when they were walking on the beaches and stuff. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that very, very much.
Yeah.
What is the rundown, fast overview of the West Coast Trail? Where is it? How long is it? Why do it 4 times instead of 1?
So Pacific Rim National Park is on Vancouver Island. You could fly into Vancouver and take a ferry. You could fly into Victoria and get a car or a shuttle bus. It's 77 kilometers. There's a lot of ladders to climb. There's cable cars you may have to use to get across, because they don't put bridges everywhere, so you might have to haul yourself across in a cable car. It's some of the old growth forests are there, like rainforest, Pacific rainforest. A lot of it's on First Nations land, and they're the caretakers. It's an exceptional trip. I won't do it again probably at all. 4 times is enough. The first time was with an ex-girlfriend way back, and it was a lot harder back then. Like, there's a lot more maintenance been done now. And then I went solo, and then I went with the girls, and then I went solo again. But I only went solo again because I was in Banff, and I was free, and there was nowhere to backpack. So I decided, well, I'll go do the West Coast Trail again. So it's a good workout.
Yeah. Is there no permit for that?
Oh, yes, but the permit there is one fee. I think it's up to $175 now or something like that to hike this trail. And you have up to 14 days to complete it. You have to tell them how long you're going to be out there, obviously. A lot of injuries on the West Coast Trail because it's wet. And even when it's not wet, it's damp and slippery. So yeah, if you went out there and you wanted to linger, for 8 or 9 days, you could. I typically do it in 4 or 5, whatever it is, 5. But yeah, you could be out there for 10 days if you just wanted to hang out on the beach. By the way, beach walking, if you haven't done it, is not as easy as it looks.
Slow.
Yes,
yeah, anything in sand is always hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you see any mountain lions while you were on it?
No, my first trip I did, yeah. So there's a section there, I forget the name of it now, where they used to have camping on the beach, and they don't anymore. It's closed because of animals, which is fine. They learn. I remember being in the tent, and it was a beautiful moonlit night, and this is a true story. I can still see it. I like to keep my rain flies open so I can look out. I like to see outside what's happening. Moonlit night, this cat, pretty good size, was prancing around between the tents. I'll never forget that. Yeah, never forget that. That was cool.
Yeah. Did you know that Vancouver Island has the highest density of mountain lions in the world?
I do.
That's scary.
But that's only one time I saw a cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think the West Coast Trail now is so busy, they would probably avoid it for the most part. Yeah.
Why not the Sunshine Coast Trail, out of curiosity?
Is that in Washington State?
I thought
Yes.
that was BC.
No. Oh, sorry, Washington State. It's along the coast of Vancouver.
Oh, that's right. No, there's another one on the island called Juan de Fuca. That's in BC Parks. Yeah.
Sunshine Coast Trail. We got a lot of, this was one of our social media videos that we were like one day looking at thinking, what happened here? Because we had all of a sudden all these views on this one video and it was out of nowhere. And it was the Sunshine Coast Trail. And it was a lot of Canadians debating this trail and where it was and if it is actually on the Sunshine Coast or what the Sunshine Coast technically is.
Yeah.
And as someone who's not from Canada, I don't know the answer.
I don't even know that. I don't know it either, to be honest with you. Yeah.
That's why when I just said yes to that, I'm like, wait, I don't know.
Yeah.
And people are very sensitive.
No, I was just in
that.
Olympic National Park, and there's a kind of a West Coast Trail like beach trail there. That's what got me confused. Yeah.
I asked because my assistant just finished it. She had done it. I think this was her second time doing it, and she did it with her dad. And I know I thought it was one of the more popular trails in the BC region, so I just figured
maybe it is.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. There.
It's showing that as the marker.
Okay, I have to add that to the list.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And before we wrap and head on over to Patreon, tell me about the Canadian Backcountry Trails Association.
Yeah, so we've just changed the name, Canadian Backcountry Trails Preservation Society.
Okay.
But here's the thing, the URL is savethetrails.ca. That's much easier. Yeah, so it's a group of us. I know we've got to go. Quick story. A friend of mine, Trevor, put a group together and they cleared out the British Columbia side of a place called Athabasca Pass. Athabasca Pass is very historically significant to the fur trade in Canada, which helped build the country, Hudson's Bay Company and things like that. David Thompson, famous explorer. First Nations took him over and said, here's your new path to the Pacific to get your goods, So you end up basically in Revelstoke and then off you go. So Simon Creek is in the park. There's a National Historic Monument at the top. You can't get there because the bridge is gone. So my friend puts it together and donates a $375,000 fiberglass bridge for 50 years. End of life, money, all of that stuff. Park says no 3 times. 3 times. It's all on the website, Save the Trails, the whole reasoning. What happened is back in 2008, 2010, the government of the day made huge budget cuts to Parks Canada, and what Jasper and other mountain parks had to do was decide, well, what are we going to cut? So Jasper decided to cut most of their backcountry maintenance. And this was one of the areas that what they're basically doing now is not replacing bridges. Now, nobody's asking for a bridge over every drainage or snow drain, or because come on, we should know how to afford things. But there are choke points in Jasper in particular, just because of its geography and topography, that you need bridges in certain places or you lose access to most of the backcountry of the park. That's what Save the Trails is all about, is trying, and we've just formed a society, which means we can take donations and get funding to help lobby the government, because that's what it's going to come down to as politicians, to say, look, we don't want every bridge, but can you make them accept this $400,000 we want to give them for this one trail, and advocate in a positive way to have access that's safe. Jasper National Park used to be the mecca of backpacking in mountains in the world. Like it's a fact. And it's not that way anymore. So here's a guy like me who's got this amazing experience with his kids that's kind of formed a lot of a core of who we are now as a family. And I'm worried that if we can't get some changes made, we may not be able to offer access to other dads and kids and mums and kids and guardians and kids to these areas that are, this is a National Historic Site that we can't get to. Yeah.
It's wild that you could even come up with the funding to solve the problem and they're still not interested in it. So it'll take a groundswell to get there, huh?
Yeah, it's what we call the moving goalposts. So first it was, well, we don't have money. Okay, well, here's the money. Well, we don't have the money to even assess it. Well, here's the money to assess it. And then we finally get the last answer was, well, we're worried about the ecological integrity of, grizzly bear habitat and wolverines. Wolverines all of a sudden. And I joked, I said, what's next, the marmot? All that whistling must hurt their ears. We just, we should protect the marmot.
Yeah.
But that's a little sarcasm. But yeah.
So what's it going to take?
Political will.
Yeah.
Yeah, public pressure always changes everything. It's no different here than it is there. I will say, you asked me earlier about what's different about hiking in the U.S. and Canada. I will say that, down here, like the AT, those are volunteer groups all up and down from Georgia to Maine that maintain most of those trails, and they're allowed to. Jasper, to their credit, does allow what they call level 1 trail work to be done by volunteers. But we're talking about way more than level 1. Level 1's taking out a handsaw and cutting down some small trees or something, right? But you guys down here, the volunteer groups are allowed to do so much more. And I think it's a really good thing. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there in Canada, because I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little change in philosophy where properly trained and insured volunteers can go out and do some of this work. But if you've got a bridge that's fiberglass and a helicopter to put it in and an engineer that professionally designed it, and you say no 3 times, I think we need to have a conversation.
Yeah. Any specific call to action for our Canuck listeners out there?
Well, I hope people will go. So we're in the process of updating the website. It's pretty rudimentary because I did it. Seriously. And we're going to have a donate button through Zephy of charitable donations. It would be great to just forget the money part, but it would just be great to have a lot of people join. And numbers, right? Will change everything. And if somebody wants to donate $5, you do a better PR campaign and stuff like that. So thank you for asking about that. Yeah. Appreciate it.
And in addition to that, please let people know where they can keep up with you. Give them the YouTube channel and anything else that they should know about.
Well, howsthehike.ca. Just go there. It's all there. There's some merch, all kinds of fun stuff like that. And YouTube, everything's just How's the Hike with an E, HOWES. And I'd love to contact or get connected with some of your amazing supporters and listeners and everything. And it's really great to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for making this happen.
Dingleberry.
Oh, duh. Sorry. It's actually Snugglebug. I have to change this manually.
I was just calling you that.
Before we wrap here, as my esteemed colleague has pointed out, we have to do the Kumo question. Use code Snugglebug at gossamergear.com for 20% off your next shelter purchase.
So this is the joke I get to make, where you get to reach into my sack and pull out a ball. Gentle.
It's a family channel. Here's a ball.
Yeah.
Great backpack, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
You get to.
What am I doing with the ball?
So you open up the ball.
Oh, I'm opening up the ball.
And there's a question inside for you.
Yes.
Oh no.
These are very random questions.
Super.
Okay, just a sec. Can you read it to me?
Sure.
Okay, great. I need my glasses on.
What is the one celebrity you'd be most starstruck to meet?
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, that's really hard.
A lot of good Canadian celebrities.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've got some stories, but we don't have time for that. But yeah, I missed out on one opportunity that was a tough one. Oh, I'm going to use it then. There's a guy named Burton Cummings in Canada, and he was with the Guess Who and stuff like that. And I was in a lounge in Toronto with Evelyn. We were flying out to do the South Boundary, and it was my birthday. And there was Burton Cummings standing right behind me, waiting to get some eggs at like the buffet. And I didn't say a thing because I was too polite. But now, oh my gosh, that's a really hard question. I think I'll just stick with that answer.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Who is Burton Cummings?
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask.
Google your friend. Yeah, just Google's your friend. Anyway, every Canadian watching this will know.
Yeah.
But, no, listen, there's lots of, I wouldn't mind meeting Ryan Reynolds or Ryan Gosling. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind reading Ryan Gosling
I'm
either.
just Ken. Remember that? Yeah, anyway. So.
Well, Stu, thank you so much for joining us here in Backpacker Radio. We're going to hop on over to the Patreon and talk about some of the best hidden gems in Canada. To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. I shouldn't have read it like that because that seemed a little bit upbeat. And this is not an upbeat story. The title is PCT Hiker Missing for Over 2 Months. Authorities Begin Search. This is by Ariella Nardizzi. Authorities are seeking information from the PCT community about a missing thru-hiker identified as Robert Budinsky, who was last seen on April 15th at the base of Black Mountain Road outside of Idlewild, California. Budinsky goes by the trail name Ambassador and is an experienced thru-hiker traveling northbound on the PCT to attempt his third successful thru-hike of the trail, according to the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation. Reports say Budinsky was dropped off by a trail angel to rejoin the PCT around mile marker 190.7 below Fuller Ridge. He was expected to pick up a resupply box near section B1 at Interstate 10, but never retrieved or forwarded it. Budinsky was reported missing at the end of June. Anyone who has seen Budinsky or has photos or information about his whereabouts is asked to contact the Riverside County Sheriff's Office at 951-766-1099.
Yeah, that's sad because I've hiked with him. When I did the PCT, we hiked together in the desert, and then I hadn't seen him for a while because you just lose people when you flip. And we were a day or same day as the day we got to Canada. And he was in like a little like camp cove to the left of the trail, just like one of those like clearings in the bushes. And he called out our name, and we were like, oh my God, holy shit, we haven't seen you since the desert. And we caught up, and then we went and we tagged the border. And so that's scary and sad. But I think I've seen two different things online about this, which is how did it go 2 months without people noticing?
That's a very good point.
But I think the thing that I remember about hiking with him is that like he was very comfortable on trails, and he has done like it says experienced thru-hiker. He has done a lot of backpacking. And so when you are not new at backpacking, and when that's something that you do pretty regularly, you don't usually get people as worried when you don't check in, because you're more familiar with what you're doing, and they kind of trust more that you're just out there doing what you're usually doing. And so I think there's got to be a level of that where it's just he goes out every summer, or he goes out a lot of summers, and he does this a lot, and you know, he's probably just out there having fun.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, that's a long time to not have information, which is kind of scary.
Yeah. I literally learned about the story via the trek, so I don't know too much of the other details, but yeah, sucks and is scary. And obviously this is not a case of somebody not being prepared. He's done the PCT a couple times before, so yeah, hoping that there are answers here shortly. Okay, question of the day. I don't know how long this segment will be. What is the best outdoor temperature? And let me preface this by saying we're talking the feels like temperature, not it's 80 and then there's a 90% humidity and it feels like 88. Like this is what it feels like on your skin.
Okay. So this is hard for me because I don't grasp numbers when it comes to temperature well. Like if I said, what's the weather, and you told me a number, I would then say, so shorts, a t-shirt, like you know when it's the extremes, but anywhere in the middle of freezing and 90, I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with a feeling.
Okay.
So I like the temperature when it's sunny and there's an occasional cloud, but not a big one. So you're not having to readjust significantly because now a big cloud came in. But you're also not just getting full hammered by sun consistently. And I like when there is a passing breeze frequently enough too, like just as much as a occasional cloud. So you have enough where you start to feel a little warm and you're like, ooh, that sun feels good.
You like the variation.
But then you also get that, nothing feels better than when you're in the sun and you get that good breeze.
Yeah.
That rocks.
Yeah.
So I like that. But I think sunny where you can be, okay, now my perfect temperature is sunny where you can be in any combination of the following and not feel uncomfortable. And that's a long sleeve shirt, a short sleeve shirt, long pants, or shorts. If I can choose to wear shorts and short sleeves and be comfortable, or I could have gone outside that same day in shorts and jeans and feel comfortable, or I could have, or sorry, not shorts, a t-shirt and jeans and feel comfortable, or a long sleeve shirt and shorts and feel comfortable. Like there's that happy middle where you can put together any combination of clothing length and it's still comfort.
Yeah.
That's mine.
The correct answer is 76. To the triple crown of worst TV characters.
Yes.
We booted this one on a recent episode in favor of something else, but this is one I've been working with a lot lately, and I'll give you the reason why. But do you want to start?
Sure. Let me pull up my list. Okay. Easy first, Joffrey Baratheon, Game of Thrones.
That was going to be my first
That
pick.
guy is a little shit.
Yeah.
And he's had a hard time getting acting jobs and like existing.
Oh, really?
After. Oh, yeah. Like even existing, I think, has been hard for him because people just hate him, which sucks.
Yeah.
But he was so good at being hateable.
He should go into the Hall of Fame for that. Like, if you can't get a job because you played such a good, maniacal, just absolute supervillain, yeah, that's a job well done. Probably sucks for him because how old was he when they filmed that show? He had to have been
like
late teens,
influence in
early 20s.
What's the word for?
I know he's a kid, but
susceptible to being crushed by everyone hating you.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
in that developmental age.
Being child star famous is bad for you. Imagine being child star hated.
Yeah.
That's got to be the worst.
Yeah.
Although, this might be a spicy take, I would maybe rather choose my kids be universally hated for something like that, like not actually hated for being a bad person, but being a great villain, as opposed to like universally adored, because that always fucks someone up real bad. Like you get a god complex, and it's just very hard to live any sort of normal semblance after that.
Yeah, I feel like when you're not liked, you get a personality.
Yeah, it's like living in cold weather.
Yeah,
like
or being a ginger.
For sure, it's the same.
We're basically hated celebrities.
Yeah. That was the obvious pick. My first pick. I'll preface this by saying I've never seen the show, but I do hate this person very much. Is Luke Danes in Gilmore Girls?
What? Why?
Just based solely on the way that he dresses.
He dresses like you. You're wearing his outfit.
No, he wears a backwards hat, and he dresses like a guy who's trying to be like 18 years old, but is clearly a grown man.
If you cut off your head and put his head on you and maybe took the t-shirt and made it long sleeves, you'd be wearing his
There's
outfit.
something about a backwards ball cap that is very like Sandlot. I don't know.
You're wearing a 4th of July shirt on the 4th of July week. Like you are dressing... What? Come on.
He's a child in a man's body.
No, he's not. Now you're going to have to watch that show because that was very insulting and hurtful, and I don't like you.
I definitely hate that guy.
I hate you.
He's probably a wonderful person.
Come
but
on. He's
the
sweet.
worst. He's the worst.
Oh, my God. I'm triggered.
And my next one this is the one that actually triggered the segment for me. I've been rewatching Breaking Bad. Skylar White.
Okay, she's on my list, too.
Yeah, she's just horrific throughout the show.
She's the worst.
So I'm on the first season right now.
Yeah.
And she has like a major blow up because Walter's like,
yeah,
I was smoking some pot. And she's like, Walter, what is wrong with? How could you do? Are you?
And just the faces she makes. I hate her face.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry to the actual person. I don't hate your face. I just hate the faces that you make in character.
She's a Karen for sure, and it would definitely drive me to cooking meth in an RV and just trying to find any sort of escape from that life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really easy to pick a character when it comes to thinking about shows you've watched, because yours was unfair, and that you like to rewatch, but that you can't get through because a certain character comes into the show and you just can't get through that part of the plot line.
Would you quit Game of Thrones on a rewatch because of Joffrey?
No. Because
I think
he's
it makes
like,
me watch
he's like
more.
He's like a good hate. I hate him in a good way. The one I'm going to do is Vanessa Abrams in Gossip Girl. I know you're not going to know who this is.
Don't.
Hate her story.
That show is just nothing but montages the entire time. If you listen to the show, because Jenna has watched it a lot.
Yeah.
And there's just always music playing. Like you always feel like you're getting to the last like 2 minutes of the episode where they're kind of doing like the moral build up to the climax, to the cliffhanger or whatever it might be. That's the entire show.
Yeah.
Like they do this weird thing where it's just, you feel like you're getting to the end of the show the entire time. And I know nothing about the show.
Well, there's a couple of throwback shows I like to watch that are nostalgic, and I can never get past a certain point. Another one, this isn't on my top ones, but the OC, there's this girl that comes back into the picture that Ryan had like dated throughout high school, and whenever her storyline comes into it, I just cannot get through
She's
it.
a really skinny blonde.
No, she's this one.
Oh yeah. Rachel Byrne? No, what's her name?
I don't know her name. Her name on the show is Teresa Diaz. But I just hate that side storyline, and so I hate her.
No, I wasn't even close. Navi Rawat.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Great show, but I hate that part. So that's who Vanessa is for me in Gossip Girl.
Oh,
She's
the
one
Gossip
that
Girls.
blocks me from completing a full rewatch.
Yeah. Okay.
My last one, I'll give an honorable mention afterwards because I don't want to go for the same show twice.
Rachel Bilson.
No, Rachel Bilson is Summer.
I know.
She's great.
That I was from the
Please.
small photo that I saw.
Yeah.
I thought that's who you're talking about.
Kimmy Gibbler.
That's a good one.
I fucking hate her.
I'm surprised you watched Full House. I feel like that would be before you.
No, I watched a lot of Full House.
Okay.
But she was annoying.
Yeah.
She
I think
really
that was by
annoying.
design. Yeah, they made
It was, and
yeah.
it worked.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. Just like everyone in the house wanted her out.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh fuck, this bitch is here.
Didn't pick up on social cues.
Yeah. My last one. I'm gonna go with every character in the show The Big Bang Theory.
Never watched it.
It's on at places, like I feel like if you're at an airport, maybe an airport's not right. I don't know why I feel like it has been on so much in my life, but it makes my skin crawl. Like I think it's the worst sitcom ever created. And you can just tell these people are bad at acting to be nerds. Like everyone's trying to be a nerd. Something about the show just makes me want to off myself.
Okay. As
So
someone
all
who
of
hasn't
them.
watched it, I can...
All of them.
Sure. Honorable mentions, Ramsay Bolton, also Game of Thrones.
I feel like you could do an entire thing of
him.
just worst Game of Thrones characters,
Yeah.
and they would be the same list.
Yeah.
I was trying to steer away from that aside from
That's why
Joffrey.
he's honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase in Community.
Mm.
Hate his character.
Apparently, he was also hated in real life in that show.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
He had the creator of that show's. He's got like a cult following, and yeah, they don't get along.
wow. Okay. Yeah, he was kind of annoying in it.
Yeah. This is a hard one for me to say because I love the show so much, but I genuinely don't like this character. Is Towley in South Park? Like the purple towel that is just high all the time.
Yeah.
I know it was like a very popular thing when I was growing up, and I always found his character to be stupid and annoying. I guess I didn't get the joke. But
I felt that way about the poop, that piece of poop
Sure.
that had a face.
yeah, that was so old school South Park that I think even those episodes are hard to watch overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Cool.
Mr. Hanky.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanky, the Christmas boo.
Yeah, I hated him.
Yeah. Sweet.
Cool.
Worst TV characters. Let us know your best worst TV characters. Podcast at thetrek.co. We'll probably do a post for this. Do we do posts for these types of things?
On Facebook.
Facebook.com/backpackerradio. Mailbag. This one's for you. So do you want to read it or should I read it for you? Is it?
You read it to me.
Okay. I wanted to mention a small story about Chaunce and her kindness back in 2020. While I was hiking the JMT in 2020, I saw Chaunce bopping down the trail while I was setting up camp at Tyndall Creek. Didn't have a chance to say hello, but thought the sighting was fun and random because I had just started listening to the pod thanks to my husband. Later that week, when I came out for my resupply in Lone Pine, I told my husband about the sighting. While he was out in town grabbing food while I was resting in the hotel room, he happened to run into her. She may not remember this encounter, and that's okay, but he mentioned something to the fact that I was on trail, that I really enjoyed the all-girls pod, which I did, and she gifted him a copy of her book. I just wanted to say that it was so very sweet of her to take time to chat with him and really appreciated her generosity in the book. Did you just happen to be carrying a book with you?
I kept one in the back seat because it was when it was new enough that people were asking about it because it came out March 2020. So it was new enough that people were asking about it. So I kept a copy in the back seat in case someone asked. I would have one to give.
Just in case.
And he had
It would turn
asked
into
if
a
I had
future
one to give.
mailbag where people would
Yeah,
having
who
you in
knew?
the back.
Full
Yeah.
circle.
I really enjoy this podcast, and I'm so grateful for it because at times we feel like we're the only people who backpack within our friends and family groups and just in the city we live in general, Las Vegas. It helps the day pass while I do city park maintenance for work, and it's been keeping me pumped for my 2024 Sobo PCT start in June. Kelly.
That's nice. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you for listening, Kelly. And yeah, I guess she's out on the trail now.
Good luck. 2024 starting in June. Okay, yeah. Okay, 5-star review. This is from Pickle43. Inspiring podcast, 5 stars. Love, love, love the podcast. I just got back from hiking the Lone Star Trail. I know the show gets poo-pooed on. Maybe the trail gets poo-pooed on. And I get why, but it was my first thru hike and backpacking trip.
So lay off.
It is also the longest trail in my home state, so the whole trip was very exciting for me. Thank you for all the great content on your show. I feel like I learned so much by listening. Thanks for doing what you do, and I will be listening. Mike A.
I was trying to pull up the reference that I was attempting to give there. Do you know what I was going for?
Yes. Was it?
You were about to say
in
it.
Billy Madison?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just making sure it was the right Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah. He's talking about how proud he is to graduate from like 8th grade or something.
Do you know that I referenced that in a work presentation?
I think you'd mentioned that. I forgot the exact context. But
I kept not qualifying for this leadership development thing because my retention numbers were too low, but I was signing up so many people that it was like really hard for me to meet the numbers they wanted based on the average numbers people were getting.
Yeah.
And so I themed my video application for this leadership development program as Billy Madison, but it was Juliana Chauncey because I couldn't graduate.
Yeah.
And at the end, I did here we are, graduation. I did my best speech, but I was like, so back off. And that's when I ended it, just cut to black.
That's funny. That's good. If you guys want to have your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple and leave us any number of stars, just not 1, 2, 3, or 4. We're also still giving out stickers to those who leave us reviews. So if you do leave us a review on Apple, be sure to screenshot it and email us at podcast@thetrek.co. Super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Peoples.
Christopher. We did this with Elise, and she had to try to fill in and do your bit, and didn't go very well.
No.
I did most of it. Christopher Marshbone, coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish.
Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost.
Eric Hoffman, Greg, Jillian Daniels. I think we had to do that a few times.
Yeah. Didn't she send you the pronunciation?
Yeah, isn't it Jillian?
I thought so, but why would you have to clarify that unless it was like Gillian?
I think I remember thinking when she sent us the correct pronunciation, being like, I wouldn't have pronounced it the way that people got it wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is Jillian.
I think people were saying Gillian, but
Who's people?
it's the people in her life.
Oh, but not us.
Yeah.
Got it.
She was like,
I thought she was correcting us.
Yeah. Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel,
Maybe bring on his name.
Haley Buckingham,
Palace.
Liz Seeger, Patrick Ciancialo, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
Tracy Trigger. You can follow us on social media at Backpacker Radio on Instagram and TikTok at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chaunce.
You can follow me on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey. I'm still putting out Ozark Highlands Trail videos. And then I've got this thing where I feel like they have to go in order. So after that, I have the Foothills Trail. And then I'm going to have the Teton Crest Trail, provided I don't get mauled by a grizzly bear in the middle of it. So you can see how that went.
Big if.
Big if. And you can get my book, Hiking from Home, a long-distance hiking guide for family and friends, on Amazon. And I'll say what Zach usually says, which is, if you liked it, leave a review, please. They are very helpful.
You're taking all my things.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials. I would also like a review.
Yeah.
Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
What's up, YouTube? We're creeping up there. We're getting close to 2,000 subscribers. Look at us.
Ooh.
And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.